We are getting some breaking news out of Beijing this morning. The latest explanation about why China has detained two Canadian men. The Chinese government is saying this morning that Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor are accused of stealing state secrets. Michael Serapio is here to bring out what we have heard from one of the Chinese government departments. What are we learning this morning, these latest allegations?
Well, important to note here, Heather, that we're getting these allegations from an English language publication in China. It is called the Global Times, and that is run under the auspices of the People's Daily, which is the official paper of the Communist Party of China. So more official messaging from Beijing than free press. Now, that said, Global Times is making the following claims this morning. They are reporting that former Canadian diplomat Michael Kovrig was allegedly stealing state secrets passed on to him from another detained Canadian, Michael Spavor, who was living and working in China near the North Korean border. Now, as you say, these are the two Canadians being detained right now. The Global Times is reporting that the allegations come from Beijing's State Security Bureau. And the specifics here we have to say are a few. The paper says Kovrig had spied on and stolen sensitive information and that his activities, quote, severely violated Chinese law. Spavor says the paper was an important intelligence contact for Kovrig. Again, all allegations. We do know that Spavor was working for an organization that does cultural exchanges with North Korea, that Kovrig was a Canadian diplomat who is currently on leave from global affairs. Both remain in detention in what's described as secret jails in China. This is where the lights remain on and the two are subjected to frequent questioning, and their detention, regardless of what the Global Times has been reporting, has up until now been widely seen as almost hostage diplomacy, retaliation, if you will, for the detention of Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei CFO in Vancouver.
And on that point, yes, ever since this happened in December, the thinking has been it was in retaliation for her detention and arrest. And so this updated information, explanation, Michael, for why China has detained the two Canadians, coming after two key developments in the Meng Wanzhou story.
That's right, because on Friday, the courts decided to move forward with her extradition hearing. Again, the United States, she's being detained because the United States wants her extradited to them on charges. So that is why she's being detained in Canada. The extradition hearing was given the go-ahead on Friday. And then this weekend, Meng Wanzhou basically filed a lawsuit against the Canadian government, Canada Border Service Agencies, as well as the RCMP for violating her charter rights, they say. But, you know, it's interesting because this newspaper article comes after these developments this weekend, but also the wording here, Heather, is very interesting because check out how the Global Times is reporting this. They say, quote, authorities stress that China is a country run by the rule of law. The country will resolutely crack down on criminal activities that jeopardize national security. Rule of law being the reason why Trudeau says Canada cannot interfere in Meng Wanzhou's case, but that phrase, rule of law, now being thrown back to the Prime Minister in this English publication.
So interesting. And there's another point, too, that we're going to look at the Great Hall of the People. This is the beginning of the annual massive gathering of Chinese politicians, and Xi Jinping under scrutiny, Michael, in part, people say, because of Huawei's being under close international scrutiny. So perhaps some of the impetus there to move on this as well. We have calls out to Canada's Foreign Affairs Department. We have calls out to the embassy in Beijing, and much more reaction to come on this. Thank you, though, Michael, for the breaking news this morning.